Welcome to Avoidant Decoded, where we finally break down the complex psychology behind avoidant attachment so you can stop guessing and start thriving in your connections. If you want even deeper insights, exclusive strategies, and personalized guidance on navigating these dynamics, make sure to join the Avoidant Decoded membership today. If you are currently exhausting yourself trying to pull an avoidant partner closer, you need to hear this. Almost everything you have been told about winning their love is actually pushing them further away. The harder you chase, the faster they run, not because they are incapable of loving you, but because your pursuit is accidentally triggering their deepest fears of being trapped. What if I told you that getting an avoidant to finally commit has absolutely nothing to do with proving your worth and everything to do with becoming someone they naturally gravitate toward? Most of the standard dating advice out there will actually backfire completely if you are dealing with an avoidant partner. The more you try to pull them close, the faster they run. When you pour your heart out to lock down a commitment, you usually just watch it vanish right before your eyes. People often misdiagnose what is actually going on under the surface. An avoidant person is rarely terrified of love or commitment itself. What they are genuinely afraid of is feeling trapped, smothered, or swallowed whole by someone else's emotional demands. Their hesitation is not a rejection of you. It is a defense mechanism built from past experiences where getting close felt like losing themselves. Once you truly grasp this, everything shifts. You stop trying to argue them into committing. Instead, you create an environment where they actually want to move toward you on their own. You become the exception to their rule by offering something they have never quite experienced before, a relationship that feels safe but still holds onto a sense of freedom and excitement. At the heart of how an avoidant falls for someone is a very specific psychological dynamic. They are magnetized by people who feel just slightly out of grasp. They are drawn to individuals who cannot be easily controlled or manipulated. Most importantly, they deeply admire someone who is completely okay, whether the avoidant is in the picture or not. They have zero desire to be your crutch. They want to be chosen by someone who is already whole. An avoidant becomes fascinated by a partner who knows exactly who they are, who keeps a little bit of mystery alive, and who stays completely grounded when things get emotionally uncomfortable. This is not about playing games, using toxic tactics, or trying to trick anyone. These are simply authentic traits that naturally foster a much healthier dynamic for everyone involved. The goal is never to manipulate an avoidant into staying. The goal is to grow into the kind of person they cannot imagine losing. There are a few core psychological triggers that change the entire game with avoidant individuals. Instead of exhausting yourself trying to prove your worth, you step back and let them discover it for themselves. You stop chasing and start radiating the kind of energy they naturally gravitate toward. You stop trying to manage their anxiety and instead build a connection where committing to you just feels like the obvious next step. The first and most magnetic trigger is absolute emotional autonomy. Nothing grabs the attention of an avoidant faster than a partner who does not need them to function. And I do not mean faking indifference while secretly waiting by the phone. I mean genuinely having a life, a sense of peace, and an identity that stands entirely on its own. Avoidants are intensely drawn to people who have built a solid foundation within themselves, folks who can process their own feelings without begging for constant validation, and people whose lives were already rich and full before the relationship ever began. This kind of independence really shows its face when things get a little shaky. If they pull back, you do not spiral. If they get quiet, you do not blow up their phone. If the texts slow down, you do not sit around agonizing over every single word, looking for a hidden clue. You just keep living your life. You pour your energy into your ambitions, your friends, your hobbies, and your own world, giving them the quiet room they need to figure out their own feelings. That level of rock-solid stability is unbelievably attractive to them because it lifts a weight they are absolutely terrified of carrying. A lot of people they date accidentally turn the relationship into an emotional full-time job. They demand endless reassurance, require long explanations for every little mood shift, and use their partner as an emotional shock absorber. Over time, that feels like a prison sentence to an avoidant. But when you bring genuine emotional security to the table, that heavy pressure just evaporates. They do not feel obligated to keep you happy. They do not have to walk on eggshells to avoid setting you off. They do not feel guilty for needing a little breathing room. Building this kind of real independence takes actual inner work. It means doing the heavy lifting to heal your own old wounds, pouring yourself into things that matter to you, leaning on friends, and actually learning how to enjoy your own solitude. When your mood no longer rises and falls based on what they are doing, a massive shift happens. You become deeply captivating, not because you are acting aloof, but simply because you are whole. This self-sufficiency also triggers a sense of appreciation. When your life is genuinely busy and fulfilling, the time you do give them becomes incredibly valuable. You stop being someone who is just always available, and you become someone whose presence actually means something. They start to realize that having access to your life is a privilege, not a given right. None of this means you should act cold or shut them out. You stay warm, you stay engaged, you show affection, but you keep your own identity firmly intact. You genuinely love having them around, but you are not utterly lost without them. You also learn how to ask for what you want without turning it into an emotional hostage situation. You can tell them you would love to see them this weekend without making their answer the final verdict on your value. You can express that you are bummed about something without demanding that they fix it for you. You can be totally real and honest without being emotionally draining. To an avoidant, this kind of communication is like a breath of fresh air because it strips away all the complicated emotional debris they usually associate with dating. Maybe the best part of stepping into this emotional independence is that it acts like a filter. When you stop operating from a place of desperate need, the people who only wanted an easy target will naturally fade away, and the ones who actually see your worth will step up to the plate. The second major trigger is having boundaries that actually mean something. Avoidants are secretly highly respect people who hold strong boundaries, much more than most people would guess. I am not talking about throwing out angry ultimatums, making threats, or getting into petty power struggles. I am talking about real, solid limits that you communicate with total calm and stick to with absolute consistency. A lot of people like to talk a big game about their standards, but the second things get uncomfortable, they cave. All that does is create a confusing, unstable environment. Healthy boundaries do not work that way. They are never put in place to control or force another person's behavior. Their only real purpose is to guard your own inner peace. You can see the difference clearly in everyday moments. Let us say someone makes a habit of bailing on your plans at the very last second. A weak boundary looks like getting into arguments, handing out endless warnings, and giving them pass after pass without anything actually changing. A real boundary is incredibly simple. You just stop clearing your schedule for someone who is unreliable. You pivot and do your own thing. There is no big blow-up, no lengthy lecture, and no attempt to force them to act right. You just take consistent action. The exact same logic applies if they are constantly showing up late. Rather than turning it into a fight, you just honor your own time. You wait for a reasonable window, and then you go about your day. If it comes up later, your explanation does not need to be deep or defensive. You just let them know you value your time, so you moved on. This kind of steady behavior builds a massive amount of trust because it is completely predictable. Avoidant nervous systems usually hate environments that feel emotionally chaotic. Firm boundaries give things structure without feeling suffocating. This goes for how you communicate too. You do not obsess over how fast they text back, and you do not pause your life just because they are being unpredictable. You keep your own routine rolling while leaving the door open for them to step into it. Boundaries are so potent because they show self-respect through action rather than words. Anybody can sit around talking about how much they value themselves. Very few actually back it up with how they live. When your actions perfectly match your standards, you project a deep confidence without ever having to brag about it. To an avoidant, that quiet self-assurance is magnetic. It shows them you are strong without being aggressive, independent without being cold, and respectful of yourself without being arrogant. Most importantly, it builds an environment where real respect can take root, because they realize that love works best when it is a free choice, not an obligation. Welcome back to Avoidant Decoded. When you actually follow through on your boundaries, a really amazing shift happens. That exhausting loop of chasing and running that usually destroys avoidant relationships just starves out. There is no emotional tug of war. There are no dramatic swings between being super close and totally distant. Because you stay completely anchored in your own standards, no matter what kind of mood they are in, the relationship stops being about reacting to each other and starts being about genuine free choice. This is a massive turning point. Instead of getting caught up in anxiety or petty drama, they are left facing a very simple question. Do I actually want to be with this person? That kind of clarity is surprisingly rare for an avoidant. The trick here is realizing your boundaries are not a punishment. You are not trying to guilt them, teach them a lesson, or force them to change. You are just protecting your own peace because it matters. You are not trying to manage their behavior. You are managing your own life. If they decide to step up and meet your standards, the connection is right there waiting for them. If they do not, you keep moving forward and honoring yourself. That kind of energy feels incredibly safe to an avoidant because there is zero control involved in it. It quietly broadcasts confidence, maturity, and self-worth all at once. Over time, they start looking at you completely differently. Instead of seeing a source of emotional stress, they see a source of stability. Instead of seeing someone who desperately needs reassurance, they see someone who already knows exactly what they bring to the table. Instead of seeing someone who falls apart under pressure, they see someone who stays totally calm when things get uncomfortable. For a nervous system that secretly craves consistency, even while pushing it away, that kind of reliability is deeply attractive. The third thing that really draws an avoidant in is a sense of mystery. They tend to check out mentally the second they feel like they have you completely figured out. Their brains are wired to be turned on by curiosity, by the process of discovering things, and by the feeling that there is always a little more hiding beneath the surface. This does not mean you should play dumb or act intentionally vague. It just means you protect the natural depth that makes you a fascinating person in the first place. The best kind of mystery comes from letting someone get to know you in layers. Instead of dumping your entire life story, every dream, every fear, and every trauma out on the table during the first few dates, you let those things surface organically as time goes on. When they ask about your past, you share a great story without giving them the unedited autobiography of your life. Every time you talk, they get to uncover a new piece of the puzzle. That builds anticipation, and anticipation is a massive driver of attraction. Your mystery should also come from the fact that you actually live an interesting life. Maybe you love taking spontaneous road trips. Maybe you have a weird hobby or a hidden talent that would catch people off guard. Maybe there are parts of your personality that only come out once someone has truly earned your trust. The secret here is just being authentic. You are not cooking up fake intrigue. You are just letting your natural complexity reveal itself at a normal pace. This applies to your achievements too. Instead of listing your accomplishments like a resume, you let them stumble upon them naturally. Maybe they find out you speak another language when you order food, or they see your creative side by accident. When they realize you have done cool things that you never even bothered to mention, it creates a really positive surprise. And surprises keep their curiosity wide awake. Even your social life plays into this. They should know you have friends and a life outside of them, but they do not need a play-by-play of every single thing you did over the weekend. When they ask how your week was, you share enough to connect, but you leave out the mundane details. This is not being secretive or shady. It is just healthy privacy, and privacy gives curiosity room to breathe. At the end of the day, the most captivating mystery comes from just being a deeply multi-layered person. You have unique viewpoints shaped by a life they have not fully heard about yet. You have passions that slowly reveal themselves. You have a rich inner world that cannot possibly be decoded in just a few conversations. The more depth you have, the longer they will stay curious. Even the way you express your feelings can hold a little surprise. Your core values stay exactly the same, but different sides of your personality pop out at different times. They might catch your wild side on a vacation or your deep philosophical side late at night. They might realize you are way more playful or insightful than they first thought. Every new discovery keeps them locked in. This slow reveal even applies to physical intimacy. As trust grows, different layers of closeness unfold naturally instead of all at once. This keeps the excitement alive because there is always a new level to explore. You are not hiding who you are just making them earn deeper access to your world through time and trust. As long as an avoidant feels like there is more to learn about you, their curiosity stays switched on. And curiosity is one of the absolute strongest forces for keeping someone attracted. The fourth major trigger is keeping your cool when they get emotionally flooded. There is almost nothing more powerful to an avoidant than a partner who can stay completely grounded while they are internally spiraling. Most people react to avoidant distancing with panic, frustration, anger, or desperate pleading. When you respond with absolute steadiness instead, it changes the entire dynamic. Welcome back to Avoidant Decoded. When an avoidant pulls away, you do not retaliate by turning cold or shutting them out. You simply stay kind, respectful, and open, but you refuse to chase, beg, or punish them for needing room to breathe. That kind of steady consistency teaches them an incredible lesson, that love does not have to vanish just because things feel a little uncomfortable. For someone used to chaotic relationship dynamics, watching you stay totally grounded during uncertainty is deeply magnetic. You are showing them the exact emotional stability they secretly wish they had. Instead of getting dragged down into their instability, your calm presence actually inspires them to rise up to your level. Another massive trigger is building a life that genuinely fulfills you. A lot of people make the mistake of hitting pause on their entire world the second a relationship starts. But true attraction fires up when your life already has deep meaning. You keep nurturing your friendships, chasing your goals, and diving into hobbies that light you up. You have real momentum, and people are naturally drawn to that energy. If they want your attention, you do not just drop everything for them because your existing commitments actually matter to you. A healthy relationship should complement your life, not replace it. Because you are genuinely engaged with your own world, your time naturally becomes valuable. When you do choose to spend time with them, it feels like a meaningful choice rather than a predictable obligation. The final and most powerful piece of this puzzle is making peace with their timeline. Most people ruin things by obsessing over where the relationship is heading, which creates heavy pressure that an avoidant feels instantly. Emotional security changes the game entirely. You know exactly what you want, and you are honest about it, but you do not try to force a schedule. You understand that if someone has to be convinced to commit, their choice is not real. So you stay patient, not passive, just patiently secure. You can talk about the future without making demands, and because they do not feel cornered, they actually feel safe enough to explore their true feelings. You enjoy exactly what you have today without demanding guarantees about tomorrow. Ironically, dropping that desperate pressure usually creates the exact outcome people try so hard to force. When commitment is presented as a free choice rather than a trap, it becomes incredibly appealing. At the end of the day, attracting an avoidant is never about chasing or convincing them. It is about becoming deeply secure in who you are, holding firm boundaries, living a rich life, and letting the connection unfold organically. When you stop making commitment your primary target and start focusing on your own growth, everything shifts. The right person will not feel pressured into choosing you. They will genuinely want to, because real commitment is never built through force. It grows naturally from freedom, trust, and the undeniable pull of someone who already knows their own worth. Ultimately, attracting an avoidant partner is never about chasing them harder, but rather about becoming so deeply secure in your own worth that you no longer need to. When you anchor yourself in emotional independence, unshakable boundaries, and a life that genuinely fulfills you, you naturally dissolve the pressure that makes them want to run. You stop trying to force a commitment and instead become the kind of rare, grounded person they simply cannot bear to lose. In that space of total freedom and profound self-respect, their fear of entrapment fades and true commitment stops feeling like a threat, transforming instead into a choice they genuinely want to make.